Step 2 is price. So when we look at price, we either look at high, low, discount or guarantee. So I'm going to be running through those with you in a moment, but think about, is your price a high price, a low price, a discounted price, or do you offer a guarantee? You might have a combination of those, but it's going to be really key that we talk about those 4 areas because they absolutely influence a buyer's actual decision making in the way that that works and the way that you sell it as well. So I'm going to be covering across in all 4 of those my tips and my experience about high, low, discounted and guaranteed in terms of your pricing. Okay, so let's look at some of the basics on pricing. Of course, what we should be looking at in terms of pricing, particularly if you have a goods or products, is you need to, of course, be looking at your profitability on those in terms of your profit and loss. I'm not going to go into the full accountancy elements, but you know that you should be looking at what does it cost me to produce something. So you have to start with your physical cost price. And then in terms of that, then you need to be able to put your markups. But I'm not going to go into that in a huge amount of detail, but you need to be looking at those and understanding those from a goods or products perspective. And when we do look at that, then you need to be really key on what that is. And many times how I see that works, particularly for us within our businesses, that we do have an accountancy practice. So when we're working with some of our clients on sales, then one of the team from the accountancy practice will be looking at their proper profit and loss. They'll be looking at their cost of sales. They'll be looking at their cost of their product and what a recommended sales price should be. But again, take advice on that, but look at that in depth. Once you've established that, then you can start to move on. But where people actually start to get a little bit wrong is you come up with your cost price, but you don't include the right level of pricing for your sales and marketing. And many people get this wrong. And what you should really be looking at, and this is a thing that not many people talk about, is you should really be spending at least 20% of your turnover on your sales and marketing. Many people don't do that and they wonder why they struggle. Now you might go, that's quite a big investment. Well, of course it is, but you need to factor that in to the way that you do your pricing. But also then what we should be looking at is when you're selling a solution or a service, again, you need to make sure that you're making profit on that, but you are putting in all the key costs that are there. And that's why when you look at a high price, sometimes things are high because of the level of input and the value that is in that proposition. And that's again where people get it wrong, is they go for a lower price because they want to get the business in. They actually forget to cost it in the right way. But what we also look in terms of the higher price, and particularly if you think about selling your solution, so particularly if you're selling yourself, think of your solution and how much you're spending. And I use this a lot with people who are a one-to-one as a consultant, and what they do in terms of that is you need to put in your pricing for what you sell at, your time outside of the doing. And what I mean by that is in a 35-hour week or a 40-hour week or a 50-hour week, you won't be doing the doing for that full period of time. Because if you're delivering for a client all of that time, then you have no other time for leads when that client goes and you move on to another client or you start to build. You haven't got the capacity in your pipeline to be doing other things. So you need to price accordingly, and you need to think, okay, in a 35-hour week, am I going to be delivering for 20 hours of that? And if you are, great, but outside of that you'll be doing other things. You'll be doing admin, learning, marketing, whatever it is. They all have a cost to your business, and I see too many people charge themselves out too cheaply and go for a low price. And if you go for a low price, you're selling yourself short, but ultimately you will fail because you're not making enough money for a sustainable business or to be able to grow that business. So you need to think about what you do. So if only 50% of the time that you have available you're actually doing the doing, then you need to think about what your cost per hour should be. And I hear far too many people are charging £20 an hour, and I'm like, you should be way more than that. One, for the value you do, but also because of the costs that are involved in doing what you do. And lots of people say, well, I work from home, I work for myself, I just got a laptop. That's fine, but you need to put the value on it. So when I look at high and low, if you look at high, you look at low, then what sometimes people are saying is, if you're high, there's a perception of value. And I come back to the John Lewis model. You know you're not necessarily going to buy cheaply in there, but you know you're paying for quality. And that should be the same for your goods, your products, and your service. People are paying for quality. And actually sometimes, if your price is too low, the perception is it's cheap or you are cheap. So you need to find that pricing that works for you. And in many cases, I work with individuals and we look at higher prices, because if you look at higher prices, you have a perceived value. So it's up to you to provide that value, but also it gives you an element of somewhere to move. So you can decide if you want to put on a bundled package, you want to give a better price if somebody buys for more, and you want to put those in. You can do that because you've got some wriggle room in your price. You can never go up in pricing and negotiations. You can only really come down. So you need to think about the difference that having a higher price or a lower price has on the perception of your goods, products or services. Now, of course, in those that are transactional sales, where you've got a product and you've got competitors, a lot of the time you are going to be competitive in your price, but also you will be putting other things in terms of add-ons that will be able to make that work. So when we're looking at discounts, for me, discounts, okay, there are discounts, but for me it's what can you add on instead of giving a discount. So what I would be looking at is to say to somebody, if they wanted to buy your particular product, or particularly in solution sales is where it happens, or even in the service industry as well, is somebody goes, can you do anything on the price? And it's like, well, no, I can't, but what I can give you, I can actually give you this particular thing, which is a benefit, and that has a value of. So instead of discounting, you can put add-ons that again are much better than giving a discount, because it's probably something less. Now, to give you an example of that, somebody might say, I'd love to use your service, and let's look at a solution, and maybe let's look at a coaching model where somebody coaching, they go into a program, they go, is there any discount? Well, no, there isn't, but actually what I can give you is I can give you another course complimentary, and it might be a course that you pre-recorded, but again it's the perception then of, okay, well, I'm not getting a discount, but wow, I'm getting this that has a value on it as well. So you can start to play in terms of those pricings about discounting. So for me, as much as possible, I would only be doing discounts on bulk, and that might be on bulk products or services, but it might be on bulk of time as well. But again, in discounts, if you're going to give someone a discount, then I would also be looking then at how much of that money you can get up front as well. And that's really key in this as well, is you need to make sure that it's a win-win situation for you and the customer, but always put yourself in that position as well of making sure it's right for you, and don't be scared to walk away from it. The other thing we look at as well is guarantees, is a guarantee on what you are doing. And in home improvements, we probably see guarantees quite regularly now. And again, in anything to do with building, you see those kind of guarantees. But in terms of other goods, products, services, then you can give guarantees. Now, guarantees can be that to somebody you can guarantee that if they're not happy, they can get their money back. But also if you do that kind of guarantee, and I work a lot on this with people I work with, is when you look at guarantees, sometimes those guarantees can be a restricted guarantee over a certain period of time. They can also be a conditional guarantee as well. They can be a guarantee that's based on the customer doing X, Y, and Z as well. So for you to say to somebody, I'll guarantee that this will happen in the next 2 to 3 months, but that's based on them putting in what they're supposed to be doing, because then you can say, if it hasn't worked for you, I will give you your money back, no questions asked, but you have to have done this. And again, you could even put that in writing. So you can look at different guarantees that make it work. And also what I see, particularly sometimes in sales, somebody will say, you know, oh, we want lead generation. Yeah, fantastic, we can give you leads. And then they go, it doesn't work. And actually, when you look at it, it's them. They can't convert it. They're not doing the steps they're supposed to be doing. So I regularly offer guarantees, but the guarantees are based on a two-way street. We will do what we do, you must do what you do. If you don't do your bit or we don't do our bit, then either you get your money back or you don't, and it's about that. So think about guarantees, how you can use them in different ways rather than just guaranteeing a goods, products or services for a period of time. Can you put some conditional guarantees in that make sure your customer does what they're supposed to do as well? The number one with pricing, make sure you price accordingly and never ever underprice what you do. It's very easy when you start a business to take all sorts of customers on, give them any kind of price, say yes to discounts, yes to anything, because you just want the money coming in.